Welcome back to another FPL video. This will be the best wildcard team for Gameweek 20, and this video is recorded on the Wednesday morning, and there are plenty of games left in Gameweek 19, and that's why certain players like Cole Palmer are still red flagged due to suspension, but after that Crystal Palace game takes place in Gameweek 19, he will be cleared to play. Yet 35,000 managers have transferred him out. Don't do that. If you kept him for Gameweek 19, don't sell him right now heading into Gameweek 20 because he will be available and he has great fixtures. But I'll discuss this in the best wildcard team video, talking about the best 50-man squad using this chip, and this can also help you with your transfer plans, not just for this game week, but also in the long term. Smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this video to over 200 likes, and we're also looking to push on towards 23,000 subscribers. We hit 22,000 on Christmas Day, so thank you very much for all your support. The same goes for channel members, patrons, those that send in super chats, and all subscribers. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. The goalkeeper position is probably the most difficult to nail on this season. Alisson Becker currently leads the way in terms of FPL points, but Leno is also up there with Onana, but it's just really difficult to predict those clean sheets sometimes. And for example, with Fulham, they beat West Ham 5-0 when most people would have anticipated West Ham to score 1 or 2 goals, yet Fulham then go on to lose to the likes of Burnley and get battered by Bournemouth. So it's very difficult to get this right, but I would go for David Raya and pick a goalkeeper from one of the best defences in the league. In my opinion, it has been the best so far this season, the fewest goals conceded alongside Liverpool, and they have some great fixtures in the long term. I would advocate that defensive Arsenal double up. I've been saying this for a long time, but over the last couple of weeks, the fixtures haven't been great, and as a result, Arsenal haven't kept clean sheets. So I did say to avoid that defensive double up in that period, but long term is a very good thing, and that's why David Raya and an Arsenal defender is probably the best way to go about it. Now, the backup goalkeeper I'm going to choose is Areola. You can go for Dubravka still, but he has been pretty woeful since he has come into that Newcastle side. Only 1 victory out of 5. I'm not blaming him, by the way. Newcastle have had a lot of injury problems, including Nick Pope, but they just lost a lot of form and confidence after that Champions League elimination, and things haven't looked rosy for them in the last month or so, and it's really poor form for an extended period of time now, and it doesn't get any better for Newcastle with Aston Villa, Liverpool and Manchester City coming up. So if you want a backup goalkeeper, you can still go for Dubravka, but I'm opting for Areola at this moment in time. And I also think Arsenal and West Ham rotate quite nicely in terms of fixtures and in terms of this matchup. Let's see what happens in Gameweek 19. But overall, Ryan Areola is a very good goalkeeper pairing. Other options you can consider include Emi Martinez, Pickford. Dubravka is still a decent budget option, but I think the very best goalkeeper in the game would be Alisson. Yet if you have Trent in the back line, that might be a bit too much money invested in that Liverpool defence, but I have to say, Alisson is still worth the money, and he will score the most points by the end of the season. I highlighted Zinchenko in last week's edition, but typically I put Saliba in the best wildcard team. I think he's the best Arsenal defender from now until the end of the season, but arguably until February or March, Zinchenko would probably score the most points, so it really depends what you're looking for. On a wildcard, you can afford some of these shorter-term punts in a way if the rest of your squad is well set up, but I've gone for Saliba just to save that future headache. Once Timber and Tomiyasu return from the Asian Cup, in Tomiyasu's case, he will return from injury around the 7th of January for an FA Cup fixture with Liverpool, but then he heads off to the Asian Cup in Gameweek 21. But once he returns and Timber is available, I think Zinchenko could be demoted to third choice left back. That is a possibility. He still offers a lot to Arsenal, but defensively he's very vulnerable, and his 1v1 defending, as we all know, can be very suspect at times. But I think Saliba is the best Arsenal option, period, in the defensive line, and I'd thoroughly recommend him. Now, once we move on to the other defenders, this is where things get very interesting. I don't think there are many standouts at this moment in time based on fixtures and form, but I would go for Kyle Walker. Manchester City have been poor in the Premier League in the last month, 1 victory out of the last 6, and I'm expecting them to bounce back against Everton and set a marker down for the rest of the season. And Kyle Walker has the fixtures, I think, to get plenty of clean sheets and the odd bonus point. No Manchester City defender reached 100 FPL points last season, but I think Kyle Walker can beat it this time round because he has played every single minute so far, which is very rare to find in a Manchester City player, let alone a defender, and that's a position where Pep Guardiola tends to rotate under his tenure in Manchester City. Now, Trent Alexander-Arnold is a no-brainer. I know some people argue, well, it makes it difficult to get Haaland back, but the best way to bring the Norwegian back into your FPL teams is to sell the likes of Salah and Son. That isn't ideal in Gameweek 20. I think both of those players can do extremely well, but on a wildcard, you also wouldn't go for those two players because they're going to be transfers waiting to happen, and it could involve taking a -4 hit if you want to replace both of them by Gameweek 21 when they're unavailable. So Trent Alexander-Arnold is well worth the money. He got a booking against Burnley and still picked up 3 bonus points towards the end. He's probably the best FPL asset in the game right now, so he has to be in your FPL team, in my opinion. And he's by far the best defender. Trippier has experienced a huge downturn in form. Newcastle are struggling, and they're not even keeping any clean sheets, and they barely win any football matches at the moment. They've got tough fixtures coming up, so Trent has no rival at this moment in time. I think the closest to him would be the likes of Saliba and Pedro Porro. Speaking of which, he also makes it into the team, but it's worth mentioning that Christian Romero, who's by far Spurs' best defender, he's going to miss the next 4 to 5 weeks due to a hamstring problem he sustained in Spurs' last game against Everton. So that is a huge loss there for Spurs, and that could affect the possibility of clean sheets. But Pedro Porro's attacking potential should make up for it. He's on set pieces while Maddison is out, and even when Maddison returns, I still think Pedro Porro can do a really good job from open play. The final defender I'm going to go for is Branthwaite, but if you do have extra funds, you could also consider Alex Moreno if Luca Dean is out for a long time. So keep an eye out for Alex Moreno or other defenders from Aston Villa like Konsa. And of course, there's always a few names here and there like Colwell and Gusto. But I'd go for Branthwaite as your 4.1 million cheap enabler. I think he offers really good value, and Everton can do well even in the tougher fixtures. So Branthwaite makes it into this 50-man squad. Don't forget Mikalenko and Tarkovsky, of course, if you have the extra money. But I think this would be very accessible for most of you. 3 blanks in a row for Saka, and there's a lot of discourse online about Saka not being worth the money and we should sell him. But when you have so many other fires to put out, especially for Son and Salah owners, those maybe with Hwang Hee-chan or other Asian or African players like Kudus, and not to mention all the injuries and suspensions that are happening over the last couple of weeks, I think Saka is far from priority sell. I think he's a hold. It's difficult to make a case for buying him at this moment in time, and Odegaard is the most informed Arsenal midfielder. So if you want to go for a differential, Odegaard over Saka could be a really nice pick considering the form of both players, but I still think Saka will come good, and from now until the end of the season, I only see Son and Salah scoring more FPL points amongst midfielders. You could also make a case for Jarrod Bowen, but I still think Saka is extremely consistent and he returns more often than not, and blanks are very rare, so I would expect them to put things right either against West Ham or in the upcoming fixture in Gameweek 20 against Fulham away. So I'm not too concerned with Saka. Now, with Son and Salah going off to the Asian Cup and the African Cup of Nations very soon, I would start to replace them now on the wild card, and I think Richarlison is a very good way of covering that Spurs attack whilst Heung-min Son is out. Richarlison could also be on penalties in that time, playing down the middle, getting the bulk of the chances, and he's in red hot form. He's scoring in the last 3 Premier League games, and he has a high ceiling with the bonus points too. So overall, Richarlison is a good pick at this moment in time. I never thought I'd say this a month ago or before that, because his overall record for Tottenham is awful, and he still needs a lot of work to kind of rectify things. But you have to say he's got a purple patch right now, and if he can continue that up until February, I think it could be a very good short to medium term pick. So I think he's definitely worth considering. Now, Palmer is still red flagged, but he's going to be available in Gameweek 20. And I think he definitely has to be held on to. If you kept him for Gameweek 19, which I recommended to everyone, then definitely keep him now for Gameweek 20. Yes, he's red flagged, but that's because the Crystal Palace game hasn't happened yet. Once that finishes, Palmer will not have any red flag, so don't worry about that at all, and don't sell him. I think that would be a huge mistake in my opinion. At a similar price, there are alternatives, but Gordon has tough fixtures, and even he blanked for the first time at St James's Park against Nottingham Forest, so Cole Palmer is the standout option at that price and below. So let's now complete the midfield. There are 2 spots left. You kind of get an impression of who I'm going to go for. Jarrod Bowen is someone I've been advocating for several months now, and especially in the last month with all this talk about the Son and Salah replacements from Gameweek 21 onwards, Bowen is the best by far, and some people might be buying Kudus still when he's going off to the African Cup of Nations in Gameweek 21. Don't do that. Instead, buy Bowen if you want to cover the West Ham attack, and long term, he has a terrific option. He's fixture proof. His next fixture is Brighton, Brighton. He got 12 points in the reverse fixture. So I think Bowen is arguably the best midfielder in the game once Son and Salah are off to their respective cup competitions. Now, the final midfielder is going to be a mega differential and someone I haven't covered before in the wildcard videos, and that is Pascal Gross, one of the most informed players in FPL over the last 6 game weeks. He's a bonus points machine, and even when he blanks like he did against Arsenal, he got Brighton's only big chance of the game. He's on set pieces. There's so much to like. I think he's a very underrated Premier League player in general. He's one of the first players that did very well for me in any fantasy format when I played Sky Fantasy Football a few years ago, and that was in his debut season. So Pascal Gross is a terrific option at that price. And of course, Gordon and Palmer would still be more popular choices, but at this moment in time, I would argue that Gross is even better than Gordon. We're going for a slightly different structure here with 3 playing forwards, and it doesn't involve these budget choices like Archer, who got an assist against Luton Town yesterday, or the likes of Semenyo, who won a penalty against Fulham. But I'm going for Erling Haaland, and it all depends on his fitness. So let's see what happens after the Everton game. Is he in the squad for that match? And what does Pep Guardiola give away after in the press conference? Probably not much, but still, it's worth waiting on this one. But if Haaland is available for Game Week 20, he's by far the best captaincy option on paper. He's got 9.8 predicted points according to FPL Team, and also by far the highest on Draft Hound. But it all depends on the fitness updates. If Haaland isn't available for Game Week 20, or he remains a severe doubt, then you can go for Nkuku instead, and then use those funds to keep Son or Salah for at least one more week in the midfield before moving them on to one of the 5 midfielders you see on screen. But Erling Haaland, of course, will be close to essential once he returns. I'm kind of hoping he isn't available for Game Week 20, so the likes of myself don't have to sell Son, Salah or Trent for a -4 hit to bring Haaland back in. But let's wait and see how that situation evolves. It will be covered on this channel in future videos as well. Now, I'm still going for Ollie Watkins, but that's only 1 return in his last 5 games. And guess which game week I sold him in? The one he returned, 11 points against Bournemouth. That's the way Watkins is. He can be a bit of a troll. I think it was 9 points anyway. It doesn't really matter. He's just a bit of an awful FPL option at times. And I also captained him for that fixture against Sheffield United. So Watkins can be very frustrating. I keep on saying this, and he's someone I don't have a great history with in FPL, but over the course of the season, very consistent. The underlying numbers are very impressive, and Aston Villa have good long-term fixtures, and they have been a bit shaky in the last week, bottling a lead against Manchester United and also dropping points to Sheffield United at home. But I would expect them to bounce back, get some good results, and to score plenty of goals, especially at Villa Park. The next striker is going to be a very obvious one. He's the most informed player right now, and that is Dominic Solanke. He only scored a penalty against Fulham, and he was on 3 bonus points, and that was removed towards the end. He didn't have a particularly great game, to be honest, but he still found a way to get a return. And of course, that 17-point haul against Nottingham Forest caught everyone's eye, and now he's going to become one of the most template and popular options in FPL. And like I said, if Erling Haaland isn't available, the next 3 best forwards would be Solanke, Watkins, and Nkuku, in my opinion. Beyond that, you're looking at Alvarez and Jesus, but I wouldn't go for either of them at this moment in time. Let's now head over to FPL Team to talk about the captaincy, the starting 11. There's going to be plenty of benching headaches with this 15-man squad, but you do have the squad depth to cover any suspensions or injuries that arise, and you also have some good plans and ways to get back to Son and Salah when the time comes. Remember that Salah could be unavailable until Game Week 24 or 25, depending on how far Egypt go in the African Cup of Nations, and Liverpool could blank in Game Week 26 if they reach the Carabao Cup final, and potentially Game Week 29 could be another blank for Liverpool if Liverpool reach the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. So there's so much to discuss over the coming weeks and months in FPL, and everything will be covered on this channel. So let's head over to FPL Team to discuss alternatives, the captaincy, the starting 11, and the predicted points, which is quite low this time round. I would go for Raya over Areola in Game Week 19, and that compensates for Saliba being on your bench. Walker, Pedro Porro and Trent would be the back 3. Saka, Richarlison, Bowen and Palmer completes the midfield, and then it would be Haaland, Watkins and Solanke should Haaland be available for Game Week 20. And then the bench is pretty solid with Areola, Saliba, Pascal Gross and Branthwaite, probably in that order, but there could be bench points. I'm not going to deny that. And the same goes for any other game week where the bench boost could easily be used in any given game week. If you want to trim things down and you don't don't want too many benching headaches, you could downgrade one of your forwards and use those funds to maybe spread things out a little bit more. Buy Trippier once the fixtures ease up for Newcastle, and it also gives you more funds to buy Son or Salah back around Game Week 25 onwards, especially in Son's case. Salah could have a lot of blanks or be unavailable for a long period of time, and we might only start to buy him or consider buying him around Game Week 27. But in terms of each position, I think you could consider Alisson, Martinez or Pickford instead of David Raya, and Dubravka is still a decent budget goalkeeper, especially when Newcastle's fixtures ease up and Newcastle don't buy a goalkeeper in January. In the defence, I would consider maybe an Aston Villa defender like Konsa or Alex Moreno, who could certainly now pop up on the radar. And in terms of other defenders, it does get a bit trickier, but Colwill or Gusto could still be decent shouts with their fixtures in mind. In the midfield, Diogo Jota, Pedro Neto, once he returns from injury, would definitely be top considerations as well. And Anthony Gordon, once Newcastle's fixtures ease up a little bit. Martin Odegaard and Bruno Fernandes maybe, or Garnacho. Of course, they're going to become popular options in the coming weeks, but I think Odegaard would be my favourite of those I just listed. And in the attack, it would be Nkunku and possibly Gabriel Jesus, but Jesus would be a bit lower down in the pecking order. I think Nkunku would be the standout replacement for Erling Haaland should it be unavailable for Game Week 20. The expected points is quite low, but that's because Haaland has 0 expected points in FPL Team, and once the fitness updates maybe are a bit more positive, then that will certainly change and he would have around 9.8 expected points like he did before. So that all is circumstantial. I've got 0.4 million left in the bank, so some of you might have more funds available to make some certain upgrades at your liking really, and some of you watching might have less money to play with, and as a result you need to make some downgrades to afford this 50-man squad. And as I said, maybe Saliba could be making way for Gabriel. Instead of Pascal Gross, you could go to a cheaper midfielder entirely. Even Douglas Luiz could be a consideration. And instead of Walker, you can go for another budget defender like Alex Moreno. So there's a lot of things you could do with all the alternatives I just discussed in this section. But for the captaincy, Erling Haaland, if he's available, he'd be the standout choice. And of course, Son and Salah, for those of you that have him, are still right up there this week. And then from this setup, Saka, Bowen, they'd be decent considerations. Watkins on paper. And to be honest, you never know. With the way this season's gone, even a Richarlison or a Solanke could be decent shouts for the armband. But I think Haaland has to take the cake, even though the most popular captaincy option has flopped on most occasions this season. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to over 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 23,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, the FPL League and Draft Town. It's all there, and there's also going to be more FPL content for Game Week 20 and beyond. I wish you all the best of luck for that game week and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.